Wait, what the hell is Black Sky again? What's up, everybody? Normally I don't do TV show reviews. I have done Game of Thrones, and I think I've done a couple episodes of Walking Dead in the past. If it's something that really strikes me, I do it. I've been getting a lot of requests to do Daredevil Season 2, and let me just say, I love this season. It is so good. I just finished it, actually, yesterday. I got through the whole season in about a week, maybe a week and a half, because I'm really not a binge watcher, because I lose interest quickly if I do that. Usually within like 3 episodes, I start losing interest. So I like to space things out. And I've never reviewed a full season of a television series before, so this should be interesting. So I figured out the best way to do this would be for me to break it up into thirds. Because really this season is kind of broken up into thirds. The first third is the whole Punisher story. And then the second third is, the entrance of Elektra. And then the third chapter is the Hand and Black Sky and everything coming to a head. And first, let's talk about Daredevil, the character himself. He goes through a lot of different things through this season, In the first few episodes of this season, we see that the Irish mob is being gunned down. I mean, just completely slayed. And then Daredevil has to deal with this. At first, he thinks this is just a regular criminal. I think he thinks it's a few people that are taking these down. One gang against another gang. But then he finds out, no, it's actually Frank Castle, the Punisher. And he realizes that this is not a bad guy in the sense that he's a criminal. He actually kills criminals. And let me emphasize the word kills. He is not like Daredevil. Daredevil doesn't kill. And I know I said in my Daredevil review that Daredevil does kill. Let me correct myself on that because I'm not always right. And in the comics, Daredevil doesn't really kill. And what I was referring to was when Ben Affleck pretty much let the subway kill one of the mob guys. But anyway, this is probably my favorite part of the show, these first 4 episodes. Not taking away anything from the rest of the season, but if I had to pick my favorite part, it's the beginnings of Frank Castle and the Punisher and Jon Bernthal. Wow, this guy really just nailed Frank Castle. He nailed the Punisher. What an actor. There are scenes in this season where he just completely shines, and he reminds me of a young De Niro actually in some scenes. But one scene in particular is at the cemetery when he's leaning up against the tombstone. And this is the first time that he's really kind of, opened up and let out some, emotion that's not anger. And he's reminiscing about his family. And that was a really touching scene. And also during this segment, the fight scenes are so good. The first couple episodes, Daredevil and the Punisher, they go at it. And the whole time, it's kind of funny because the Punisher kidnaps Daredevil and chains him to a chimney. And he tries to force Daredevil to kill him. And that's one of the themes of this season is Daredevil's constant struggle with killing and refusing to do it. And Frank Castle is the antithesis of that. He is the opposite. He wants to extinguish criminals, no questions asked, black and white. Now the middle section of season 2 I think is really good, but this is where it kind of hits a lull for me because Elektra enters the fold, and at first I wasn't a big fan of the actress that was playing Elektra. But then I grew to like her as the season went on, as her character started to develop. And really by the end of the season, I really enjoyed her actually. She kicks ass. And it was so cool to see her get those signature weapons that Elektra is known for. And also during this segment, there was a brief relationship between Matt Murdock and Karen, and which only lasted, I think, like 2 episodes, because Matt is just constantly drawn in by Elektra. And as much as he hates her, he also loves her. Also during this section, I really enjoyed the return of the Kingpin. And this surprised me, I didn't see this coming. And I love that whole section in the prison where one of the other inmates is the boss, and he approaches the Kingpin and tells him, hey, I'm the boss, you're not the boss. So you're just gonna have to step aside, which is a huge mistake to threaten the Kingpin. You just don't do it. So what does he do? He makes a deal with Frank Castle to kill this guy. And he expects Frank Castle to die too, but no, that doesn't happen. That scene in the prison when Frank just goes through, I think, like a dozen guys. Wow, that was just insane and bloody as hell. That's another thing about this show that's so good. This is a hard R. This is not a PG-13 show, which is kind of funny because the rest of the Marvel Universe, you know, they're cracking jokes. It's very far from R-rated entertainment, whereas the Daredevil season, oh, the characters are just so dark. It feels like a DC property. I mean, really, Daredevil does seem like Batman in a lot of these episodes. And I'm just gonna sidebar here and say, wouldn't it be so cool if the characters in Daredevil actually entered, you know, some of the later MCU movies? I would love to see Daredevil, you know, in the same frame as Tony Stark and Frank Castle. That would be really interesting. And I also didn't mention the trial of Frank Castle. That was a really good episode too, because the whole time, you know, Foggy, he thinks, hey, I think I got a shot here. And then Frank Castle just screws the whole thing up and just flips out. And also during this period, Foggy and Matt Murdock, they split ways. There's always this tug of war with Murdock being the lawyer and being Daredevil. And eventually it comes to a head and he has to choose, and he chooses to be Daredevil. And I think Elektra kind of pulled him away from his normal civilized life. And now let's talk about the last third of this. And this is where Stick enters the fold. And I just want to talk about Stick for a sec. There is nobody that could do a better job as Stick, I think, than Scott Glenn. And it does kind of remind me of his role in Sucker Punch. And I remember when I first saw Sucker Punch, I was like, Scott Glenn, that's kind of a weird casting. But then he really came into his own, and he was one of the best parts of Sucker Punch. And he really reminds me of David Carradine a bit. But I digress. But he was just fantastic in Daredevil. I just love the way he mentors Daredevil and he mentors Elektra. And he's really just a badass. I think that's the best way to put it. Stick is a badass. Also, this is the period where the Hand enters the fold and they're in the search of Black Sky. Now, this is the part that kind of confused me the most about the season, so I did a little bit of research on Black Sky. And outside of Elektra being Black Sky, we really don't know too much outside of that. If you guys know more than I do, feel free to let me know. But Elektra herself is having this kind of tug of war because she's having to choose between, you know, Stick and Daredevil and her destiny, that being Black Sky. But that last episode was really epic. There was a lot of action in that last episode. I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool in season 3 if they bring in Bullseye? But then by the end of the episode, I was like, oh, I guess they won't need to bring in Bullseye. Because Elektra pretty much throws herself on the sword for Daredevil. And she gets killed really in the same way that she gets killed in the comics by Bullseye. But in the end, this was just really a great season. And I did mention the cinematography. I have to mention the cinematography in this show. It is cinematic. It looks like this could be shown on the big screen. It looks like a Daredevil movie, it really does. They did such a great job with the lighting in every episode, with the use of slow motion, with the use of the choreography. The fight scenes are just amazing in this show. And I watched Jessica Jones, and the fight scenes are the opposite in that show than they are in Daredevil, which is crazy. Like, I couldn't stand the fight scenes in Jessica Jones. It was really weak. But anyway, guys, that is my review for season 2 of Daredevil. I would definitely buy this season if you want to own it. I mean, you can watch it on Netflix all day, every day if you want to, but it's really a great season. If I had to give it a rating, yeah, I would definitely give it a high purchase worthy. So what are your thoughts on Daredevil season 2? Are you looking forward to season 3? I know I am. And it's gonna be a long wait. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Humdrum out.